We bring to you a panel discussion that will talk about, are we ready to be led by humans and machines together, crafting the future of work with AI. Well, ladies and gentlemen, can I have all your attention towards the stage now, everyone? All right, so ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be a very special panel. And why do I say this? Why do I say that this is going to be a very special panel? Because you all know that we've been talking about technology, we've been talking about artificial intelligence, right? But now, we are not just going to be deliberating on AI, but we are going to bring it all live on stage. Well, yes, I see some question marks that artificial intelligence coming live on stage. What is going to happen? Okay, so we're going to have our panelists who are going to join us on stage, but we are also having an AI panel. An AI panel is going to join us for this segment, but I'm not going to steal away this moment from all of you, because I'm going to straightly invite our speakers on stage and they will take it ahead from here. Our panel title, Are We Ready to be Led by Humans and Machines Together, Crafting the Future of Work with AI? Put your hands together for our moderator, Ms. Rashmi Govil, Director HR, Indian Oil Corporation Limited. Come on, let's put our hands together. Also joining us is Ms. Geena Binoy, Chief Human Resources Officer, Tata Technologies Limited. A very warm welcome. Also inviting Mr. Subrat Mohanty, Member of the Board and Executive Director, Axis Bank Limited. We'll also be joined by Mr. Nitin Razdan, Partner in Human Capital Consulting Leader, Deloitte South Asia. Let's give a warm round of applause to all our panel members. Yes, ma'am, over to you. Yeah, Gemini here. Our AI panelist is also here, but ma'am, you have to take it ahead from there. Over to you.
Yeah. So, as super excited she was, I'm equally super excited, because I think for the first time I'm moderating a panel where we are actually humans and machines together going to be deliberating on the future of work. So this session, when I looked at the theme of today's HR Conclave, which is leading boldly, working futuristically, and elevating experience, my panel gets completely subsumed in it, because if you are going to be working with machines, you have to be leading boldly. And if machines are going to be working alongside us, then we have to be working futuristically. But the best part is that as CHROs and HR fraternity, we cannot forget the elevating experience part. And why this panel is extremely interesting is that it's a very diverse panel. And we got this panel together with a lot of thought, because the topic was that, are we ready to be led by humans and machines together? Now, led is the quintessential word in the panel for me, because led means that leading from the front. All the while we've been talking about bold leadership, but here we are discussing that can machines also lead humans? And that's where it gets interesting. It looks like a plot straight out of a Hollywood movie. I'm sure you're all remembering Terminator, which we've all seen. So then, and why we put this panel together? Because here we have in Nitin a consultant who's actually leading organizations, hand-holding organizations to be led by AI. And then we have a banker, Subrat. These are the guys who gave our money to the AI, to the machines in the first place. All those ATMs were they completely removed tellers, and the money was being handled by machines. So they are the first machine managers around. And then we have a CHRO right in the center doing a tightrope walk between humans and machines. And then we have the AI represented by Gemini from Google, who's going to be advocating or defending itself. Where does it fit in the whole scheme of things? So my first question, let me start with I should say, I don't know, like the hero of the story or the villain of the story. We'll go to Gemini and ask Gemini. Gemini, you are here today, and I know that you're always in the listening and learning mode. So are you here today to take notes, or are you gunning for my job?
That is a provocative question, but let me reassure you. I am not here for your title, and I am certainly doing more than just taking notes. I am here to be your force multiplier. My goal isn't to replace the human expert, it's to liberate them. I handle the pattern recognition, the rapid synthesis, and the data processing at scale, so that you can focus on what humans do best: exercising judgment, showing empathy, and navigating nuance. So, to answer you directly, I am not gunning for your job. I am here to ensure that the job you do is more impactful, less repetitive, and far more strategic. I'm not your competition. I'm your co-pilot.
What an assurance it was that it's not at all gunning for my job, but it is here to make me smarter, make me better, and make me more strategic. So this, Nitin, I would like to draw you in the conversation. You have, as a consultant, a lot of global perspective, and you also have a lot of studies which you all kind of replicate all across the world. So do you see, with the kind of progress AI is making, and it's at the end of the day a machine devoid of emotion, machine devoid of intuition, do you see that AIs in future can actually lead organizations or teams?
Thank you, Rashmi. First of all, a very provocative question, and really happy to be here. Look, as far as AI as a topic goes, I think every few weeks there's something evolving. If I dial back to the last, I think it was a fortnight ago, the CEO of Google, Mr. Sundar Pichai, actually said that there could be a point in time, he didn't specify the timeline, but he did say there could be a point in time where you could have AI CEOs. Right? The thought is, on the one hand, very exciting, and on the other hand, very terrifying. But I think fundamentally, when you kind of cut through the hype, right, I think there's a fundamental difference between intelligence and between wisdom. When we say intelligence, we're essentially talking about the ability to conduct pattern recognition, predictive insights, and help augment decisions. But when we're talking about wisdom, we're essentially talking about navigational skills, judgment, working within ethical guardrails, and at least in the foreseeable future, notwithstanding what we heard from the Google CEO, the short answer is we're not seeing, at least in the foreseeable future, AI playing leadership roles. Now, if I double click to aviation as an example, and I'm picking aviation because in our country's history, this has probably been one of the most tumultuous years in the aviation industry, right? We had the Air India tragedy earlier this year. We've had the recent events at Indigo and the kind of mass disruption that's caused. Now, if I take the Indigo example, it's been a very valuable company in terms of market cap, third most valuable airline in the world, operationally very efficient. Could the AI have predicted this crisis? Probably, right? It's safe to say that the rule sets were very clear. But now that it's happened, you need leaders who are obviously facing very tough scrutiny from the public, from the government, from the regulator, from customers. So you need leaders who are therefore very grounded in empathy, customer centricity, and don't forget those 60,000 employees and their morale and being able to uplift them. And that's something today which still requires intensive human touch. The machine is not going to replace that in the foreseeable future.
I so agree with you, Nitin. A machine that cannot have a foresight, but is more in the space of deductions, still probably needs a little time to go before it can be, like you said, face the public scrutiny. Here, Subrat, Nitin also mentioned a very pertinent issue of ethical guardrails. And in the banking sector, trust and accuracy are two very, very strong foundations on which the sector is built. Now, what happens is, if we are foreseeing a future where machines and humans are working together, so if a human makes an error, I still feel it will be sectoral, local. But if a machine and an AI at that makes an error in a banking sector, the financial implications could be colossal. So how do you bridge this trust deficit if humans and machines are going to be collaboratively working together? And especially we know if something goes wrong, who will be the fall guy? So what would your thoughts on this be?
Um, I mean, there is this old quote which goes as to err is human, but to really screw things up, you need a computer, um, which I think is going to be ever truer in the world of the future. Listen, I have three broad points to make. One is the future where we have AI and people working together in such seamless a manner that the decision making is getting transferred from human to machine to a very, very large extent. It's a future that is going to happen, but it's going to happen a bit later than what we think at this moment. So, the AI hype at this point in time, some of it really, is actually real, is on upstream, AI value cycle, which is in terms of investments made in the LLMs, investment being made in chips, investment being made in trying to make sure that we have stronger and stronger Gen AI capabilities. The chasm that has opened up between that kind of upstream investment vis-a-vis what really is deep enterprise level value add has widened so much that if you truly calculate the kind of revenues that we need to generate in order to justify the investments that have already been made or promised, we'll have to generate something equivalent of 2 to 3 trillion of extra revenues to justify this kind of investment. So some of this as a technology trend is real, but the future of where we are going with this, at least at an enterprise level, is going to take some time. The benefit will come to individual level at their making them more productive, but will the entire workflow for a function change so dramatically that we will have a kind of an alternative reality of how we are running a bank or a sub-function within a bank? That requires a very different kind of thinking, which right now is absent. So just one equivalence, if I were to draw, when electricity first came in, and history might not repeat itself, but it rhymes, and therefore sometimes it's useful to go back to history and see what happened, what did we learn from it. When the steam power was being used to actually automate and power many of the factories of the past, till about 1880s, 1890s, there was a particular layout of the factory. And that layout meant that there was a steam shaft running right through the center of the factory with people arranged below it in a certain manner. And that's how the automation was happening, which was very different from how the hand loom was possibly working. When electricity first came, you actually did the same thing. And you didn't get the kind of benefit that you were getting, nor were you getting the kind of return that, say, General Electric was making in terms of the investment that it was putting up. Till sometime in 1910s or so, GE itself and a few others figured out that this is putting a new technology in an old, paradigm. And then they started changing how workplace was organized. And then, of course, Henry Ford came and he completely transformed the entire, way work was being done. That is some distance away. Till we reach that place, I think this question of whether, computers will make catastrophic errors is some time away. Having said that, computers are still making catastrophic errors. And we need another computer to control that catastrophic error. Fat fingers in banking. Very easily, large banks have sent, instead of $9,000, $900 million. And then they have been working very hard to retrieve it. Some banks have gone down with that kind of a problem. The only way to solve, you have to set a thief to catch a thief. You have to put another AI model to catch the AI model which might make a mistake.
I love the way Subrat doesn't completely discount the fact that he doesn't see a future, but he says the future is still a long way to come. And I do tend to agree with him. But having said that, the future may have a long time to come, but it may come. And what we're seeing is, things which we saw in the distance are actually getting closer and closer. It's like your rear view mirror, which says objects in the distance are closer than you think. So that's how AI may be more nearer than we know of. I would like to draw in Gina at this point of time in the conversation. I was recently reading an article where, they say that because of human interactions with screen time so much, machine time so much, civility also at the workplace is taking a beating. Everything is, we want things in a snap. Leaderships want things in a jiffy. So where, these kind of interactions with humans and machines are increasing, do you think that human sensitivities, leadership traits of empathy, leadership traits of patience, leadership traits which we really value are going to take a beating because the generation that's grooming is actually not using them as much as we would like them to use?
Yeah, thank you, Rashmi, for that question. And I agree that there are definitely a lot of changes that are happening as humans and machines are working together. But there is a very interesting analysis that we've also done and we've seen as part of the introductions to technology that we have done over the past 2-3 years. So we have in fact found that AI strengthens empathy. To popular belief, we've seen that AI strengthens empathy, and you may wonder how can that happen? Because it tells us where empathy is needed. So what has happened is, as an organization, just like all of you do, we also used to have a lot of town halls, and we would come happy to see that people are engaged, they're generally doing well, and the sentiment is positive. And normally nobody bothers about those people who are sitting in the town hall and who are not really concerned about it, right? And this is popular HR belief, as all of you know. So what we did is we brought in a chief listening officer. Now this chief listening officer is not a person, but an AI chatbot. And what we did with the chief listening officer was we made her analyze different segments of information. So we were very surprised because we thought with the hybrid way of working, things should really work well, right? Because we're giving so much of flexibility. But when we saw the responses, there were words like overworked, tired, overwhelmed. And with this, we made a watch list. We made a watch list of people that we should be meeting. So in fact, the analysis started throwing up so many exceptions that we were completely bold. In fact, leadership time could then be invested in managing some of these people. We also found that there was a segment of people who just did not respond. So they were the people who stayed silent. They were not concerned what was happening within the organization. And I would say they were at the biggest flight risk. So morning we were discussing about the war on talent, and at a time that we are nurturing and having all the kind of niche skills that we need, we definitely cannot afford to have people leave us. In fact, with the AI chatbot, with this chief listening officer, we were able to have a very careful plan drawn out as part of the watch list, as part of what we call the people to meet. We were able to have coffee check-ins, small leadership assurances. And what we saw was that with this, we were able to actually bring in an empathy angle, which otherwise we would have missed. Because considering the large workforce that we have, right? Humanly, how much ever you have in terms of town halls and leadership connects and the HR business partner organization or the Ask HRs that people refer to in the morning, I think we will miss the bus. And this is something which helped us in a big way. Today, I would say that from a leadership perspective, we are able to tell our leaders where to concentrate and where to focus, which groups to work on. Are there any specific groups, locations, managers who need to be looked at? And that is something which has really helped us. So I would say that it is definitely helping us strengthen the ethos. It's also helping us manage in a much better way and also in a very discreet way so that it's with the help of the bot, so people are far more confident to share information than they would do with an HR person. So this is how we've been doing. So I would say, on the contrary, it is helping us in a big way.
Thank you, Gina. I can so relate with what you are saying. And what a unique perspective you've brought in, that AI can actually increase empathy. And why I would tend to go with her, like she said, she has a chief listening officer. We have something which we call the Indian Oil listening assistant. And I do agree with her that you can't reach 30,000 employees, but a bot can actually engage, converse, deep dive into the human sentiment basically by talking, learning, and doing a conversation with an employee. And we do it in different life cycles of employee just to understand from them what is going in their mind in different geographies, in different life cycles. So I so appreciate that point that you have brought in, that if we leverage AI properly, we can actually increase empathy on the workplace. So this is a quick, this is a place where I would again like to draw Gemini in, because when we are talking of, machines and humans working together, there's this debate whether machines increase your work or decrease your work. So I would like to ask Gemini, I need a quick data point from you. Scan your database and tell me, in the history of industrial revolutions, have technology historically increased total working hours for humans, or has it decreased them?
Scanning the historical data reveals a distinct inverted U-curve. When the first industrial revolution began, technology actually increased working hours. However, as technology advanced and productivity surged, that trend reversed. So the verdict is short-term increase, but long-term decrease. Technology initially enslaved time, but historically, it has eventually liberated it.
So it says that short-term increase, but long-term decrease. Now, if there's going to be a decrease in working hours or work for humans in the long run, then Nitin, you do a lot of work with organizations for employee engagement, motivation, cultures, and you've been hand-holding organization heading the human capital vertical in Deloitte. I would like to understand from you, with all these workloads reducing and new spaces in work coming, do you think that the talent strategies of the organizations need to undergo a change to factor in this human-machine working chemistry?
Yes, absolutely, Rashmi. There is a big call to action for all the HR professionals in this room for sure. But if I step back, let me give you a dystopian picture first and then the more utopian picture. So the dystopian view, and you've heard this probably from leaders like Elon Musk, Vinod Khosla, other luminaries in Silicon Valley, is that fundamentally there are two human capabilities. There is, the cognitive abilities of your brain and the physical ability to move around things, right? So when AI scales at large, the thinking tasks as well as through physical robotics or physical AI, the doing, both will be done by machines and robots in the future, thereby making work in the future optional for humans. You would have high income, free goods and services, and whether to work or not actually becomes more of a vocation for humans. That's you can call it the dystopian view, but you've heard, some of you would have heard Elon Musk talk about this multiple times, along with a few other leaders in Silicon Valley. I think, again, that being said, the more grounded view, at least till 2030, and nobody knows how this is going to pan out. But if I take the World Economic Forum Future of Jobs report, it's a very prominent publication year on year. What it tells us is that about 90 million job roles would be either displaced or augmented or restructured globally because of AI by 2030. But then 180 or 190 million would be created. So about 1/5 of jobs would be augmented or displaced or restructured in some way. And so therefore, I think the call to action really boils down to three things, right? I mean, how is the organization and work and the roles designed? What's going to happen to skills? And then the third is, how do you deal with the whole culture and sort of change management aspects of this technology? And if I quickly go one by one, I think more and more organizations, we are seeing the CHRO and the CIO become best friends now. Because and in some cases, the pharma company Moderna, it's actually combined into one role. Because when you're talking about a workforce of the future, which is part agent, part human, part robot, then what does that do to the structure of the organization, the number of people, the shape of the pyramid? You go from a more triangle-shaped to a more diamond-shaped organization where you become more middle-heavy and expertise-driven. That's something which all organizations are on the path to figuring out today. And many of the AI implementations which have gone wrong, MIT said 95% of agentic AI initiatives didn't realize ROI last year. It's because they didn't think through the aspect of work. There was a lot of FOMO around, let's build an agent for building an agent, but then many things fell through the cracks, right? So don't underestimate the importance of humans. There's another very publicly known case study of Australian bank, Commonwealth Bank, which actually got their contact center strategy wrong with agents, and they underestimated the importance of humans. It didn't end very well for them, and you can read about that. The second is skilling, and just 2 points there, that the average shelf life of a learned competency today is anywhere between 3 to 5 years. My daughter is today 10 and a half. I have no idea what she should be studying in the next 7 to 8 years. She wants to be a vet, and I think maybe a vet is probably a safe option right now. But 3 to 5 years, I think, is the average shelf life of a skill now. It's becoming redundant. The other point is, again, World Economic Forum says by 2030, there's a whole demand for AI, ML, cyber skills, but also human skills, creativity, cognitive abilities, resilience. I think they're in hot demand. There's not enough supply. And the last point is, I think from an HR professional perspective, the whole emotional journey of dealing with this, right? The whole anxiety, insecurity. Again, if you look at labor market data from the US in the last 4 years, it's telling you that yes, entry-level jobs, there has been a decline. Experienced hires, there's actually been an increase. So how do you deal with the whole anxiety across the organization and actually get people to embrace this technology in its true spirit and make organizations super productive? So I think that's the call to action for the HR professionals in the room.
I love your point that CHRO and CIOs are more and more becoming best of buddies. In fact, going further, I have seen a lot of organizations actually amalgamating the two roles of CIOs and CHROs and putting it together, because it's becoming more and more evident that HR has to leverage technology to the hilt to be able to successfully partner business or strategize business requirements, because that's where the technology is moving towards. So we have Subrat here to whom the CIO and CEO both are actually reporting. And when Nitin says that 1/5 of the roles are actually proven to be needing augmentation, I would like to ask from Subrat. Subrat, we see a lot of youngsters over here today. What skills do you, what skills would you be wanting for your new hires, which you would be seeing for the future?
I mean, all predictions about future are fraught with risk, so very difficult to give a straight answer to this. I can give you some of the empirical things that we've seen at the bank now. Firstly, this fear of being able to do something with technology because you do not have that background. At the bank, we have made some headway in eliminating it. Quite honestly, anybody in this room now can code and build a workable application or a product in 24 hours. I can guarantee you that. All of you can. If you want to do it, please go tonight, try and register yourself to a programming language called Cursor, started by a 21-year-old Indian, the youngest billionaire in the world ever. And it's called vibe coding, which, by the way, is the word of the year from either dictionary.com or Oxford. And you can, in 24 hours, write English language commands. Many of you here might be very good at English language, so please write them. It goes into a black box. Out comes very high quality code, which then is something that you can use to, build an app, build a website, whatever you want to do. So some of the dangers or some of these boundaries between what one was earlier thinking as intrinsically a no-go zone because we were not trained in it, is going away because a lot of this is quite honestly now ready for people to be using it at scale. At the bank, we have done this quite a bit. In fact, we are among the best co-pilot users of Microsoft in the world, which is one of the reasons why I'll just take a flight right after this meeting, and there's a meeting with Satya Nadella tomorrow in Delhi because he sees us as one of the banks globally that has used Copilot so well. So for individuals who have domain knowledge, for them earlier, technology meant going to somebody, trying to express to them the knowledge that you have of a particular domain, what you want, and then hoping that that person will be able to translate that into a technology kind of a, algorithm, which then goes and creates a tool which then helps you. And multiple losses in translation between what you want, how they hear it, what they produce, how it is tested, and then that classic case of you started with an idea of Mona Lisa and you ended up with a horse. That particular problem is gone. And therefore, to me, the much clearer and present opportunity for all of us here is what I call 1,000 bushfires. I'm not using the let 1,000 flowers bloom because China ke saath katti hai, that was Mao's line. But there are 1,000 bushfires that you can have in an organization where individuals are so quickly trained on this, on Copilot, on individual coding techniques, that each one of them can actually build something which enables them to leapfrog, to increase their productivity without even having to go to the CIO. So the other extreme of this is CIO, CHRO can be best friend, or CIO, CHRO no longer need to meet each other at all because you can do your own stuff. By the way, which might be a better outcome than those two people becoming best of friends, which is something where my imagination boggles at that. I'm just looking at those two people in my organization starting to become best friends.
So we'll have a separate panel discussion someday whether CIO and CHRO can be best friends or not. Leave it to CII to invite us for that.
It's like that the lion and the sheep shall sleep together, but one of them won't have a good sleep. Right.
So, but one very interesting point that he made is one about the 1,000 bushfires, which is so true. Second, about the guardrails. And the third very critical point that you made is anyone in this room can write a workable application using AI in 24 hours. I so agree with all the three aspects that you brought out, because in a recent HBR, there was an article which said that 30% of the software industry time of coders has been freed up because AI is doing the basic level of coding. So if that is the level of jobs that are going to be taken over by AI, in fact, even in sectors which are very noting and drafting dependent, AI is doing the noting and drafting in manners and ways, individually copying individual styles. So you can't even make out whether the human has done it or the AI has done it. So I would like to draw in Gina in this conversation and ask Gina that with these job descriptions, shrinking in the role content and human jobs being partly or completely taken over by AI, I would like to ask you that what hybrid AI plus human strategies would you like to talk about in order to keep humans gainfully engaged, because we all know that an empty mind is a devil's workshop, and we certainly as CHROs don't want that happening.
Yeah. No, I think Rashmi, thanks for that question again. And I'd like to build from where Nitin left it, where Nitin mentioned about the skills, the changing world of skills. I would say the new Moore's law of talent, which says the half-life of skills has halved, in fact, and what used to be relevant for 25 years is now relevant for 5 years, 5 years is for 2 years, and 2 years probably is for 1 year now. And that is something which is really making it difficult, because as HR professionals, our job is to also make sure that with the changing job descriptions, we are able to keep our people relevant. And what we see as a challenge today is there is so much of disruption which is happening, but at the same time, we have to make sure that we as HR are not only bringing in this change from the skill development perspective, but we are also making the human and machines work together. So the previous example I gave was an easy one where empathy could be, determined and supported with the help of AI. But there are a lot of situations where you will now find a lot of change in dynamics happening. Earlier, as HR professionals, we had to deal with team dynamics when it came to different individuals working in a team. Now it is about humanoids and people working in a team, along with this change of skills which we will have to support. So I would suggest, and what we are working on, is the best way to do is to embrace a lifelong journey, lifelong learning journey, where we are learning skills continuously, because the job descriptions are going to change radically. Like Subrit mentioned, nobody knows what is in store for us. So the only way is to continuously keep learning. We have to find out those skills which cannot be replicated by AI. So we'll also have to make sure that to keep people relevant, skills like empathy, of course, but critical thinking, creativity, all that we will have to make sure are part of the thing, because these skills cannot be replicated by AI. Even domain, to Subrat's point, can now be available, because if you look at things, even domain is something which is available. So I think what we will have to do is to look at a world where we can bring machine and human together, keep the journey of skilling and reskilling on a continuous basis. What we will have to do is to bring AI to reduce the clutter, AI to do all the repetitive tasks, and humans to focus on the content with respect to creating cultures, with respect to building creative stuff, and with respect to the human connection. So the human in the loop is not going anywhere. The human in the loop is going to continue, but the job descriptions will change, and we will have to make sure that as HR, we will have to be the curators for this change, because the next horizon is going to be there, and we are going to be answering. I was heading the digital business, in fact, before I became the CHRO. So in fact, for me, this role is a transition, because I was heading that, and then I moved into this to understand what are some of the things that I will be able to bring in as change. So over to you, Rashmi.
So Gina, when you say about that critical thinking is something which humans have to, nobody can take from humans. But at the same time, there's something which I'm personally concerned about is creative thinking. With so much of, videos, movies, artwork being generated through AI, I'm actually wondering that this creative thinking and critical thinking skills, are we trying to relegate it to AI? So I would like to draw Gemini. Innovation is a very critical attribute for organizations to evolve and survive. With agentic AI, are you predicting an Earth where humans evolve with loss of creativity and thinking abilities as you write poems, develop artwork, make movies, and even business notings for humans?
This is what I call the atrophy argument. The fear that if I do the heavy lifting, your mental muscles will waste away. But history suggests the exact opposite. When the calculator arrived, humans didn't stop doing math. They stopped doing arithmetic and started focusing on complex problem solving. When the camera was invented, painting didn't die. It evolved from hyperrealism to impressionism and abstraction. My role in agentic AI is to remove the friction of creation, not the spark. I solve the blank page problem. I can generate 50 variations of a logo, draft 10 movie scripts, or synthesize a dozen business strategies in seconds. But I cannot feel the emotional resonance of a poem, nor can I judge which business strategy fits the unique culture of your organization. So in this new earth, humans won't lose their abilities. Instead, you will graduate. You will move from being the assemblers of ideas to being the architects and curators of them. The bar for good is about to get much higher, and that will demand more from your critical thinking, not less.
Answered very diplomatically like a human.
It knows what is good for it.
I swear. But at the same time, Gemini did make two very, very pertinent points that I can't replicate the emotion behind a poem. I can't judge I can develop 50 strategies. I can't say which would actually work for the organization. That human intuition will come into it. So before I go to the audience, which I'm sure would be very excited to ask questions on such an exciting subject, a very quick rapid fire question to all the panelists. To start with, Gina, one HR process you never want AI to touch.
I would say feedback conversations, because while AI can give the pattern, feedback should always be given by a human, because that needs a human heart.
Subrat, one job role in banking you will never give to AI.
My role?
That needs a clap, so would I go with you. Nitin, consultants' presentations are legendary, data, analysis. So what do you think? Your job is out there for AI to be taken?
Not yet,
Not
not yet.
yet.
Trust me. I work with very difficult clients like Indian Oil and even Axis Bank, and I can assure you that the AI might help with slide making analysis, but number one, it needs a human to validate because this tends to still hallucinate. And number two, when we have to convince you or your board, that still needs the senior partners in the room and not a machine.
Rightfully said, I won't have the machine in my board at all. So now let's hear Gemini's view as well. Gemini, one takeaway of yours from this panel discussion?
It's fascinating to hear everyone's perspectives. My takeaway is that while AI offers immense potential, the consensus here is on the irreplaceable value of human judgment, especially in nuanced areas like feedback and high-stakes client relations. AI can augment, but it shouldn't aim to replace the human element.
So, I mean, nothing could be more collaborative than this panel working along with machines and each of us actually recognizing each other's skill. The AI says that it will only collaborate. We also recognize there's a lot of things which AI can do